Hello, hello, and welcome to the first Code Live of 2023. Happy New Year to you all, and I hope you had a blast with all your family, your beloveds, and your friends. My name is Julian Duque. I am a principal developer advocate here at Salesforce, and today we are going to learn how to integrate external services on a Salesforce flow. I beg your pardon initially. I have a killer migraine. I don't know, since I woke up, my head is really, really pounding right now. If I am not in my best mood, in my best energy, yes, pardon me, but we are going to be doing the best to give you the content that I have prepared for you. So, let's start before we get into the topic of external services and flow. Let me invite you to Trailblazer DX. This year in March, we are going to have the main conference for Salesforce builders, where we are going to have Salesforce developers, admins, architects, and we are going to have a MuleSoft, Tableau, and Slack all in one single place under one roof. So if you have the opportunity to travel to San Francisco and you want to come to Trailblazer DX, go ahead, go to the developer.salesforce.com website, register right now. And if you cannot attend, there will be some sessions and information that is going to be streamed on Salesforce Plus, totally free. Okay. My camera might be having some issues as well. So maybe I'm going to be ignoring the camera right now and going full screen so you don't see my camera just frozen. Let me try to restart the camera. Maybe later we will see if it works. So what we are going to do is implement a third-party API or bring functionality from a third-party API to a Salesforce flow. Normally, we can write a lot of the logic and the business logic using Apex, or we can also delegate that logic to a Salesforce functions. But sometimes we will need to integrate to a third-party API, to external service. In this case, we will have an API that is going to be provided by a third-party provider, and we will add certain specific methods of that API into our flow. Before we start talking about the standards and the specifications behind external services, let me show you the flow we are going to be working today. I will going to upload the metadata for this project and the source code of the API that I implemented in Node.js to GitHub, and I will add those resources in the description of the video that's going to be processed after this code live. So what we have here is a store that sells solar panels. This store is called Solar Circles. It is just a fictional solar panel store. And we can order different types of solar panels on this store. So right now, we have a certain amount of stock of those specific solar panels. Let's say if we go to the org and we open the solar panels, we have 3 different solar panels here, and we only have 20 of each available to distribute. But what happens if we run out of stock? Are we going to prevent our users to buy the panels? That's not the idea. We are going to still create the order, but then request our manufacturer or our provider of solar panels to create a restocking order. That restocking order is going to be done through an external API that the manufacturer or the provider gave us. So that's where we are going to use an external services. So pretty much the flow, let me get all of the solar panels that are available, create a solar order. I'm going to be adding different solar panels and the amount of solar panels that I want. And then after I create the solar panel records, I will need to check the stock and update the stock. So every time I am updating the stock, I will need to check if I go to 0 and then submit a restocking order for that specific product. So far, I don't have any third-party service integrated here. I'm always getting into 0, and we don't have a way to let our provider automatically that we run out of that specific stock. So let's run this flow. I'm going to debug it here so you see how I implemented this. Okay, welcome to Solar Cycles. Who are you? So I'm selecting the contact here. This is for simplify the process. Otherwise, I will be asking for the contact from the screen I am attaching this flow. But I'm selecting the contact here that is buying those solar panels. And I start the order. So now select the solar panel. Let's say I'm going to select the Solaria, 15 panels. And I want to buy more. And let me buy the Trina solar panel. I will buy 30. And I don't want to buy any more. So after I finalize, it says that the solar order has been created. So I can go to my solar orders. I can take a look at the solar orders. There I have a new solar order that has been created. And if I go to solar panels again, now we see the stock. For the Solaria, we only have 5 available. And for the Trina, we have 0. Remember, we had 20, but we ordered 30. So we need to submit a restock order, right? So let's see how can we do that. If you have any questions, please go ahead, ask in the chat. We are going to monitor both the YouTube live chat and the Twitch live chat. If you have any question, please let us know. Let me see if my camera is working again. No, it is not working. So you are going to just watch at the screen right now. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We are going to do this through the OpenAPI spec. So what is the OpenAPI spec? This standard allows me to describe a REST API by just creating either a JSON or a YAML file that defines not only the available operations, but also the different types of objects or object definitions that my API supports. If you have been in the industry for a while, you might remember that before REST APIs, SOAP or WSDL, that was the descriptor language for those web services, was the most used web service standard back in the time. Yeah, you might have worked with that, a lot of XML going in and out. And with the WSDL, you were able to generate a client to interact with that web service. That's because the WSDL, or the web service definition language, was a standard, and a lot of providers created tools to auto-generate code with that description. So easily you can connect to that API. So OpenAPI is the similar thing, but for REST APIs. So we have a JSON description that shows me all of the different operations, the input parameters, the output parameters depending on the HTTP status. And with that, we can create clients automatically. There are a lot of different code generations, One of the most populars are the one that are created by Swagger, which is like a company that pretty much be able to generate clients by using the OpenAPI specification. So the latest version of the OpenAPI specification is the version 3. That's the one we are going to be using today. External services in Flow supports both the OpenAPI specification 2 and the OpenAPI specification 3. So you can integrate APIs that has that specific spec implemented. If the API doesn't have the specification implemented, you will need to do it yourself, or maybe you will need to ask the provider to do it by yourself. And that will be way more difficult than just getting the API that already has the specification implemented. Well, you might know if you have joined my codeLive that I am a Node.js developer. I've been working with Node.js for a while, and there are a lot of different libraries that I love to create APIs. One of those libraries is Fastify. So if you're a Node.js developer and you are not using Fastify, you are missing out one of the most fastest and best web frameworks that are out there. So I highly recommend you to start learning Fastify, using Fastify in your new Node.js project. I know Express is one of the most popular Node.js frameworks to build web applications, but I personally recommend Fastify. And we also use Fastify in some of our projects as well internally, especially Salesforce Functions. The Node.js backend for functions is written in Fastify, just so you know. Okay, so one of the cool features about Fastify is that it supports schemas. So you can define a schema for your API routes. The schema is going to be pretty much what defines the shape of that specific route. What are the input parameters? What are the output parameters, depending on the error codes, etc. And part of the Fastify ecosystem, if you go to the website, I'm going to share the website, is fastify.io. If you go to the ecosystem tab, you're going to see a lot of different plugins that are available for Fastify. One of those plugins is Swagger. The Swagger plugin is the one that allows you to dynamically generate that OpenAPI specification from the schemas of the API routes that you have defined with Fastify. So it will do the schema generation for you, and also the documentation as well. So if we already have the full specification for our APIs, we can use something like the Swagger UI, which is a website that just shows you the documentation of that specific API and allows you to test the API from that website as well. Yes, Ike, Fastify is great. Express has been the default for a while, but I definitely recommend using Fastify. And one of the things is that Fastify also can support Express middleware. So there are like a way to implement, connect, or Express middlewares in Fastify as well. Let's check the code. What do you say? Okay. So I have two projects here. One is the Salesforce project that is going to have all the flow metadata. And I have here the Node.js project, which is the restocking service, the service that this third-party provider is going to give me to create a restocking order. So let me open this on Visual Studio Code. Perfect. And then I'm going to open the website. This is jduque restocking-service.herokuapp.com/API docs. So this is showing me the API docs of this service. This is the Swagger UI. It's generating automatically this documentation of my API by just reading the JSON spec. And I have two routes. These are going to be the two routes that we will be using with Flow. One is a post route that helps me create a new restocking order. The input parameter is a JSON body that receives the product ID and the quantity. And there is a minimum amount of products that I can order on a restock order, which are 10. And if it is successful, it will return a 201 status code with this object, with the order ID, and it will give me again the product ID and the quantity. If there is an error, it will return an error object that has just a message. And I have another route that allows me to ask for the pending pending orders that have not been fulfilled by this third-party service by product ID. So I will need to pass the product ID, and it will return if I have a pending order or if the order has been fulfilled. So it will be a Boolean that tells me if the order is pending or not. Why we need this in the flow? Let's see if we are going to use it, but maybe to prevent creating multiple restocking orders, right? So we don't want to overwhelm our provider by creating multiple restocking orders. We are going to create a restocking order only if there are no pending ones. If there are a pending one, I am going to ignore that. And then I have access to the definitions. So I have an order, which represents the order that I created with the order ID, the product ID, and the quantity. I have a restock order, which is the input parameter for the create order method that only receives a product ID that is required and a quantity. And I can check the types of those different properties. And we can see here that the minimum value of the quantity is 10. The error message, which represents an error, it returns a string. And the pending represents a Boolean indicating if there is a pending order or not. So with the OpenAPI spec, with that JSON, I am able to create a full documentation of my API. How that JSON looks like, I can open that JSON here. And you can see it specifies some metadata information of that API. It shows me the different definitions that I have created. For example, the order, the restock order, the error, the pending, and the different routes that my API has available. For example, the stock order have a post method, and these are the input parameters, and these are the responses that the method can return. All of this has been generated automatically by my Node.js project. Let's take a look at the Node.js project. And I am going to be sharing all of this source code for you to learn, to review. So this is a Fastify.js project that I generated using the Fastify CLI. It is a CLI that auto-generates a Fastify project. So it made my work easy to create this. I designed a database that I'm going to be showing you here. I'm using a PostgreSQL database to store the information. Let me see if I can show you the database. Oh, yes, it is open here. And let me show you the diagram. Cool. and reduce these to 75. Awesome. So I have two tables, one that has the different products with an ID, a reference, and a description. And then I have an orders table, which are the restocking orders that I'm going to be creating on my database, that has a product ID, the order ID, the quantity of products that I'm going to be ordering, if it is fulfilled or not, and the dates where the order has been created and the order has been fulfilled. Like some internal information that I would be using or not. That's how my API works. Let's take a look at the routes. So here in the routes, I have a stock folder. Inside the stock folder, I have my different routes. So let me concentrate on the routes. One route is the post. It's called /order. So completely it's going to be /stock/order because that's how Fastify organize routes. It's going to use the folder as one of the namespaces for this endpoint. And I am passing an schema. But let's ignore this schema property for now. My function, what it does is connect to a PostgreSQL database, gets the product ID and the quantity, validate if the product exists. If the product exists, it will continue by creating an order, and it will get the ID of that created order, and it will return the object with the order ID, product ID, and quantity. If there is an error with that operation, I'm going to return the error object, and at the end, either way or the other, I'm going to be closing the database connection. And with the pending route, I am asking the product ID on the path, not on the body, but on the path, because this is a get method. Let's ignore the schema again. I am getting the product ID from the params object. I'm validating the product again. And what I'm doing is pretty much querying my database for orders that has not been fulfilled. And I'm just checking if I have pending orders or not with a Boolean operation. And I'm returning that Boolean or a message if something failed. Where can it fail? For example, on the product validation. For the product validation, I am checking if the product exists. If that product doesn't exist, I am returning an error message. Let's take a look at the schema definitions. So now with Fastify, and this is one of the features that I like the most, is that you can specify schemas for your routes. So here I am creating schemas. For example, this schema, it's an order definition or an object definition that I called order. And it has the following properties: order ID, product ID, and quantity. This is the schema for the restock order that has two properties, product ID and quantity, and those properties are required. And there is another schema that it's called object, that it's called error, that has an error message. And the other schema, which is pending, that has a Boolean called pending. So these are my object definitions. And as you can see, every object definition has an ID that describes that specific object. Then I am creating the full schema for my routes. So order schema represents the full schema for my routes. So for the body, like the input parameter, it's going to be a reference to restock order. So here I'm doing a reference to the ID that I created previously. And the response, I am mapping the output. So when I have a 201, which is a created HTTP status, I am returning the order. If I have a 500, I return the error. And the same with pending schema. Pending schema is getting a product ID as the parameters, not as the body, and I have two different responses. 200 if it is successful, and 100 if there is an error. And I'm specifying the schema or adding the schema to our routes by just specifying this object as the second parameter of my route definition. And here I'm passing the pending schema. So far, we are just adding JSON schemas to our Node.js project. We are not doing anything with Swagger. Swagger, it is a plugin for the Fastify ecosystem. So when you enable the Fastify Swagger plugin into your project, now it will auto-generate that specification for you based on the schemas that you configure for your routes. If we take a look at the app.js file, this is where I am registering the 3 different plugins that I'm using. Swagger for generating the whole specification, Swagger UI for that beautiful website that gives me the documentation, and PostgreSDB, which is the Fastify Postgres plugin to interact with the database. I'm registering the PostgreSDB, setting up the database URL that I'm getting from Heroku. So I'm deploying this to Heroku and hosting the database on Heroku. Also, I am registering the Swagger plugin, and here I am specifying, okay, this is the name of my API, this is the description, this is the version, and I have a function that resolves the definition, so I have the definitions by name, not by auto-generated ID. And this is going to be very useful for our Flow project because we will have the object reference by name. And the UI, pretty much I am registering the UI to serve under this specific route, /API docs. So this is the UI that it's serving that specification. And that's the only thing I did. I registered these 3 plugins. I had these routes with the schemas, and that create the project. So if I run npm start, this is locally. It's npm start locally, and I open this URL locally. I'm getting the Swagger project that I built with the same information. But let's keep using the one that we have remotely, so we can try the API before implementing this API or integrating this API with Flow. So let me create a new restocking order. So to create a new restocking order, I can do a tryout. Awesome. So it gives me a way to submit a payload. Let's create a payload right now with the product ID 0. I'm going to execute this request, and the response is an error. It is telling me that the product with ID 0 is not found. So there is no product with that ID. So that's why it is failing. If I pass a proper ID and I execute, it returns the order 5 with the product 1, quantity 10. So this is creating the value in the database. We can go and check the database. Heroku, PGPSQL. I'm accessing that database from my service. Select everything from the orders, and I have the order that I created. The order ID 5, product ID 1, and quantity 10. So my API, it is working. And we are checking if it is fulfilled or not. So now let's test the other API route. Let me try it out. Let's see if I have a pending order for the product ID 1. If I execute, it is telling me that I have a pending order. Nice, because I have not fulfilled this order. But if I update the order, update orders set fulfilled equals true, where ID equals 5. So I fulfill the order. Now it is true. If I execute again this validation, it is then telling me that I don't have any pending orders. So this is the API. The API is simple, and we will see if we can integrate that API in our flow. So where in our flow are we going to implement that API? So pretty much we are subtracting the stock on this loop. For each solar panel, we are doing the operation. We will need to check if that new stock is 0. If it is 0, we will trigger a new restocking action, a new restocking order. But before doing that, we will need to register the external service in our Salesforce project. How can we do that? So let me go to setup. We have on the integrations section, we have the external services setup. So I can create a new external service. In order to create a new external service, the recommendation is to create a named credential, because maybe this API will have authentication. So far, I am ignoring authentication to make it easier, but you can define any sort of authentication mechanism, if it is basic authentication or JWT or OAuth. The OpenAPI spec also allows you to define that authentication mechanism. But for simplify our case, and because we don't have a lot of time, we are going to avoid the authentication. So let's go. Before starting, we need to give Salesforce access to that external service. So we are going to add a new remote site, and the remote site is going to be my API URL. So let me create a new remote site. This is the restocking service. Let me add the URL. It is active, save, and now I have a remote site URL. So now that we have the remote site, let me go to named credentials. Here you can do two things. You can use the new name credentials or the legacy name credentials. If you are going to use the new, you will need to create a new external credential. So let's create a new external credential. Label, this is restocking service. So restocking service external credential. Restocking service external credential. And the authentication protocol is custom, because we are not using any protocol here. So if it is custom, we can pass like custom headers and some other information, but we are keeping it simple. Then we go back to name credentials. We are going to create now the restocking service credential. Restocking service credential. With that URL, the external credential that we will use is the external that we have, and we are not going to generate any authorization header or anything like that. We are just keeping it simple. And let me save this name credential as well. And then we can register the external services. So we go to external service. We are going to register an external service from an API specification, because we are not using MuleSoft, but we can also use the same OpenAPI specification in MuleSoft as well. but we are going directly to my API. Next, let's name this restocking service. Let's select a absolute URL. And the absolute URL is API docs JSON to get the description. The name credential is the restocking service credential. And you can see that it performed a schema validation. It fetched that JSON, it got the information from that route, and it is telling us that the schema is valid. Then we will need to map the services. So we have a lot of different operations on that specific service, but we are just going to use the stock order and get the stock order by pending. So it auto-generated the names, but you can also define the operation names on the API schema. And it is telling me, okay, these are pretty much the output parameters that it generates. Cool. Let's continue. And now we have more information about the services and the operations that we are adding. So we have the post stock order that creates a new restocking order. The input parameter is an object. It is mapping that object into a Apex class, which is the restocking service restock order. And the output parameters, it's mapping those to the different error codes. I have the 201, which is the restocking service order, and the 500, which is the restocking service error. And the same with the other operation. It is getting an input parameter, which is the product ID, and the output is going to be either the Boolean or the error. Okay? That's what we wanted. We wanted to map that service and their operations into Salesforce. So now that we registered this service here, we will be able to use the service in a flow. Okay, let's go to our flow. This is our flow. So after I update the records, what I'm doing here is doing the assignment. This assignment is performing the subtract operation. So let me check that subtract operation here. I have a subtract operation. Is getting the current solar panel that I have selected, the stock, like the full stock, and I am removing the quantity of that specific one that I am adding to my order. And if that subtraction is higher than 0, I'm going to return pretty much the stock that I subtracted. If it is 0 or less, I'm going just to return 0. I don't want to keep negatives. I just want to return 0. Cool. So this is the operation that I'm doing here in this assignment. And the assignment is pretty much setting the stock variable with that new value. So after I update the record, I might want to check if the stock is 0. How can I do that? Brandon, is there a way to see how the flow was created? The specific elements? I created this before because it took me a while. I will put the metadata of this flow on a GitHub project, both the Node.js project and this flow, so you can take a look at every element. Does that work for you, Brandon? Because going through the whole process of creating the flow will take a lot of time. It will be more than the hour we have available. But the full metadata is going to be available, so you can deploy this on a Scratch org and take a look at how the flow was created. If you have any question about what I'm doing here, just ask and I can pause and do a zoom in into every step of this flow, okay? Cool. Let's continue. And what we are going to do is, after we update the record, right? We are updating the record. I am going to add the operation here. I'm going to call that action. So first we need to have a decision. So the decision, this is, should we restock, create a stock order, is going to be the default outcome. If no, no. Okay. So where can we create a stock order? So we need to check the resource. The current solar panel, it's going to be a solar panel from current solar panel. That's the current solar panel that I am iterating here. I have a variable, so I can use that variable. Yes. And stock, I can get the stock. If the stock is equals to 0, we can, or we need to trigger that that operation. Okay. So should we restock? Let's see. Let's connect this. Let's connect the update records to this. Should we restock? And then bring the action. So the action is going to be service. Where is? Oh, let me save and refresh because I am not seeing the external service that I just registered. Let me bring the action. Yes, there we are. We have the post stock order. And this is create restocking order. The input parameter, so needs to be a body, and the body, it will be a class. In this case, let me see. Let me see. It needs to be the new resource. So let me create a new resource. The new resource is variable, data type, Apex defined. The class is going to be an restock order, right? And the API name, let's call restock order. So I'm creating a new variable of type restock order that will contain the values for me to submit to my API. Done. So restock order. And now I need to assign the variables manually. No. How can I? Is this the Apex define? I forgot how to add the values here. Okay, let me. I am missing something here, so I'm going to try again. I missed the variable, data type, apex define. It is not available for input. It is a restock order. How can I do the assignment here? So what I'm missing? I'm creating the variable. I will need to do the assignment before. Yes, I think I need to do the assignment before. So restock order. And then, do I need the output? So far, let's ignore the output. We don't need the output. And let's do the assignment to restock order before this action. So should we restock, I need to do an assignment. This is create restocking order. No, assign restocking order. Okay. So I have the restock order. The product ID is equals to the current panel product ID. Okay. And the quantity, I'm going to set a predefined quantity for every restocking. Let's say if I am out of stock, I am going to order 20, right? To set like a predefined stock. So now that I did the assignment, so should we restock, create the stock order, and now I call the action. And when I call the action, I can go to my confirmation and I finalize. If we don't need to restock, we can go to the confirmation screen. Right? So let me organize this a little bit. Let's do the decision. Should we restock? Yes, we need to restock. And we need to restock, and we need to create an order, and then I will confirm. So that way I am now integrating external service into my flow, and I should have a new order for that specific product. Let's see if this works by debugging my flow. Oh, let me save first. Otherwise, the changes are not going to be taken. So I'm saving the flow. Let me debug. Before we debug, let's confirm that we don't have any orders. Yes, we only have the order 5. We will need to get a new order. Okay. So run. I am going to be ordering. Now let's get the second panel, the third panel, sorry, the Panasonic. And I need 30. So I know that that's not going to be enough stock for this. I'm going to perform my order. It went into... Okay, so we have something here. So should we restock? We skip this outcome because its conditions were not met. So for some reason, the condition here is not being met. So I am not checking that restock operation. So there is a problem on my flow. We can see here something. is that the stock value here is with decimals and I am just checking without decimals. So maybe I have like a type issue here. Let's see, greater, if it is less than or equal to 0. Let's see if the decimal is the one that it's causing the issue. Save again. Let's debug. And let me debug to see if it works. Now the Panasonic is out of stock. So let me restock the panels because I don't want to have any crazy stuff here. Where are my panels? Okay, let me restock manually. 20, 20, and 20. Save. Beautiful. Let's go back to the flow that I was debugging. Is this one? Okay. So the Panasonic, I want 30 and I don't need more. Next. And now that's something good that we are having here. Okay. It's telling me that I have issues with the external credential. So it tried to call the service, but I'm having issues with the external credential. It seems there are like permission issues. Good. Instead of trying to fix the permission issues, what I will be doing is the following. I'm going to remove the service and I'm going to use the legacy name credentials. So with the legacy name credentials, I'm sure it will be easier. So let me, I don't think I can delete it because I will have an issue. Let me see if it lets me delete the external service. I don't think because it is being used. Yeah, it is being used, so I cannot delete it. Let me modify my flow to delete the action, the assignment, and the variable that I have here. I am deleting the variable. Okay, so now I don't have anything referencing that external service. That's a good thing about live coding, that things might fail, and I love that. So let me go to name credentials, delete this credential. I need to investigate why it failed. And let's create a new legacy credential. So this is going to be restocking credentials. And the URL, I know the URL is this one. I don't need authentication. Save. Beautiful. Now I have credentials. Let's go to external services again. Create a new external service from the restocking service API docs JSON. Perfect. So I have the JSON schema again. Good. I am getting the two operations again. Good. This is good. And let's fix the flow again. So remember, we need a new variable, which we called restocking order. And it was an Apex defined of class restocking order or restock order. And then I needed to create an assignment. It is assign restocking order. So I need to get the restocking order product ID equals to bar current solar panel product ID, and the quantity we told that it was 20. It was a predefined quantity, and then it was the action. So I'm repeating what we did previously. Post a stock order. Awesome. So this is create restocking order. The body is this restocking order, and I am not getting any output. We can use the output, but we are not getting the output here. There is a fault. Why I have a fault in there? Decision. Should we restock? Oh, it's here. So yes, create a stock order, and then the confirmation and no means no. Okay, let's try, because we are running out of time, but at least we are going to integrate one of the actions. Oh yes, yeah, I missed that. Thank you, Shiz. Let me save and give it a try again. Debug. Hello, Julian. Please, I want the Trina solar panel. Give me 30. It will be out of stock. And the order has been created. So we are having an issue here. I am not managing any error. If we manage the error, we will be able to get this. If you see, the product ID came as 0. So the product ID was not found. So I need to double check if my solar panels have the proper product ID. Yes, they have the proper product ID, but why I'm not getting the product ID? Let me change this assignment. Instead of this is the product ID. Instead of the current solar panel, let me get the solar panel from current solar panel, product ID. That's the one. The quantity was good, the product ID was not. Maybe the variable was not updated. I was using a different one. And let me debug again. And I know the first solar panel will be out of stock. And the restocking order was created. We have a 201 here. Let me zoom. We have a 201 here. And if we go to the database, voila, we were able to create the restocking order. Awesome. This worked. I'm happy because I was able to show a success path. The next thing I wanted to do, and maybe I will leave that as homework for you, is only create a restocking order if there is not a pending order already. So if there is not a pending order, we just ignore it. If there is not a pending order, we create one. If there is a pending order, we ignore it. So pretty much what we need to do is add another decision and use the other method. Can we do this? So create the stock order, do the assignment, but let's see if we can do it quickly here. I like the challenge. So let's make we will need to call. Yeah, so assignment. Let's create a stock order. We are going to create a stock order. So should we restock? Yes. Create a stock order. So instead of creating a stock order, so this is the assignment that we are happening here, we need to add another decision after this. This is going to be, so should we restock? So we go and have an action. And this action will be get a store by pending, get pending orders. Let me see, get pending orders. Let's pass a product ID from the current solar panel. And let's assign the variables, the output, to a new variable, which is going to be bar. And let's call it pending order. Let's call it pending order. This is an apex defined one. And this is a pending one. Cool. So what I'm doing is pretty much the output. I am assigning that output to this variable. So should we restock? Create a stock order. Let's change his name to check if there are pending orders. Check pending orders. Okay, check pending orders. And now another decision. And the order decision here is the following. Are there pending orders? So yes. If there are pending orders, it's because pending order equals true. Yes. So our pending orders, go to the screen. Otherwise, oh, sorry, this is not here. Our pending orders, yes, go to the screen. Otherwise, create the order. So now we need to organize this a little bit so we understand what's going on. But you get the idea. Now our flow is a little bit more complex. But now it is calling the other route. So let me save. Let me debug and see if it works. And we are running out of time. So cool. We are out of time. But let's do. Julian, I know there is a pending order for the product 2. There is a pending order for the product 2, which is the Trina solar panel. Let me order 20. Next. And it's creating a restocking. Because the order product is 3. So the order product is 3. It created the order. Okay. For Trina, that already has an order. Let me see. Trina, that already has an order. It should fail. So let me see. Are pending order? Yes. So since there are pending orders, it didn't create a new one. So we already have the other orders, and it is not overwhelming our solar panel providers. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to present to you all today. I'm going to be uploading this source code, both the full flow and the Node.js API to GitHub, we will add that GitHub repository to the description of this video so you can have it. Sadly, my camera should be still. Let me see if I can fix it. Should be still on the last frame that I was looking oddly to my keyboard. Oh no, now it's working. Awesome. So thank you very much for attending to the first codeLive of 2023. We still have a lot of more content planned for you. We will be discussing in the two following codeLives, still going on the API stuff. We will be discussing GraphQL. I will be showing you how to create a GraphQL from scratch using Node.js. What is an schema with GraphQL, how to write resolvers, how to connect a GraphQL API with a URL. And Mohit Srivastava later is going to show you the GraphQL APIs that are available in Salesforce. So I don't know if you know, but now you can query information using GraphQL in Salesforce. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much for joining me on this codeLive. I hope you learned as much as I did with this session, and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.